It could have all ended right here, but I leaned into my idea, and so instead of it ending here, it ended up here. I'll tell you how. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Akeem Shannon, founder and creator of Flipstik, and you're watching the Flipstik YouTube channel. If you're coming back, welcome back. We're glad to have you here once again. Thanks for subscribing if you have, and if you haven't, feel free to subscribe. And if you're new, welcome to the channel. Here we talk about business, entrepreneurship, and today, leaning into your idea, not giving up at the beginning. It's one of the hardest things for people to do. So we're gonna jump into it today, and I actually have something pretty I don't know if I've ever shared this before. So what you're looking at here, this is like the beginning of Flipstik. This was when I was trying to come up with the shape, the design of Flipstik, the logo. Like, this was before it ever existed, and you actually see the shape that I landed on. I actually added that shape later, to be honest. I added it after I actually came up with it. I was like, okay, this is the shape. I cut it out and then I traced it. But yeah, I mean, I had come up with all these different concepts. Some of the stuff I'm looking at now and I'm like, what are all these dotted lines? I don't know what I was thinking. Like, this looks like an ironing board. I don't know what was going on. But this was the beginning. And, I've had a lot of business ideas over the years. And most of them never got past a thought. It never got past that initial stage of just coming up with the concept. So today I wanted to talk to you about really leaning into your idea and carrying it through fruition, and kind of giving you some of those things along that early journey that may make you stop, and to just encourage you to keep going. So this was the beginning. I had come up with the name Flipstik. I didn't know how I wanted to spell it yet, but I was like, yes, I definitely have a name, Flipstik. You actually see the only thing that's actually close to our logo is written very tiny. You see I drew a K here, and it all kind of formed for me, trying to make our product into the K, and then I kind of revised it, then I revised it again, and you actually see the little K symbol right here, really small, but that was the one where I was like, oh, this is it. This is the design for Flipstik. And going back to this sheet, almost 3.5, 4 years later at this point, it really kind of lets me know how far you come from and what it takes to bring something, into reality. When you're early on in your journey, I actually recommend you don't share it with a lot of people. It's hard to lean into your idea just yourself. There's all that self-doubt that you have. You're telling yourself, will this really work? Let me not quit my job. Let me just do what I've already been doing. But when you start to introduce other people to your idea, when you start telling them, whether they're showing them, a lot of times you're gonna get negative feedback. And it's not that the negative feedback is, I don't believe in you, but it's really mostly people saying, I don't believe in myself. So since I wouldn't do it myself, I don't think you should do it. And, a lot of times these are people that want the best for you. Oftentimes it's parents, it's siblings, spouses, bosses, mentors. When you have a new idea, when you're trying to do something brand new, it's hard for a lot of people to get fully behind it and say, hey, that's a great idea. There's been so many times in my life, so many times in some of the most successful people that, have ever lived, where someone has told them their idea is bad. I talked about in a video about how Walt Disney's brother told him it wasn't a good idea to do Snow White, but it ended up being one of the biggest films that Walt Disney ever did at that time. There's a lot of times in your journey where people will just tell you not to go, but you have to believe in yourself. So the first thing I always say is, listen, keep it to yourself. Until you've gotten further enough along in the process, keep it to yourself. In fact, when I started Flipstik, I had just started a marketing company a few weeks prior, and I was starting to work on Flipstik. And what I actually told people was that, oh, this is just a marketing client. I'm just doing this as a marketing client. Can you give me some feedback here? Let me work on this. because I didn't want anyone to talk me out of it and tell me, why don't you just focus on doing marketing? That's what you said you were quitting your job to do. And I honestly didn't want people to think, oh, he's just jumping from one idea to the other, to the next idea. And by me kind of creating that separation, I didn't get really any negative feedback from anyone. It was all positive, because everyone's like, oh, you got this great marketing client for this product. That's great. My parents said that, friends, family, everyone said that. And, these are some of the same people that when I'm like, I'm going to quit my job at this, big tech company. Don't quit your job. You can't do that. I'm going to quit my job and go to do this. Oh, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't rock the boat. These are the same people that would often caution me not to do things. But in this case, because I really didn't tell them, oh, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, that kind of cautionary, play it safe bet didn't happen. And that really allowed me to fully put myself into this idea. Not only that, but I just believe with all my heart and soul, I was like, this is going to work. I just know it, I can feel it, it's going to work. And a lot of people ask me, when did you realize that Flipstik was going to be a success? Was it after you made X amount of dollars? Was it going on Shark Tank? When was it? And for me, it was actually a lot earlier on. We did a Kickstarter campaign where we raised funds by pre-selling the Flipstik. And when we launched that campaign, we made $1,000 in the first hour. We started getting dings, and these are people that had never heard of me. They didn't know me. They didn't know anything about the product. They just watched the video and they bought the product. And that process, just seeing those, 100 orders that happened in that first hour, that was enough to tell me that, hey, no matter what, you cannot give up. So that's the next big thing I tell you, is that you can't give up. There's gonna be so many times, especially early on when you have an idea, where you're gonna get stuck, you're gonna think it's not gonna work, the doubt's gonna kick in, and you're gonna say, it's just time for me to hang up the bag. But you can't give up in any idea, no matter who's out there that you found that's successful. They face so many obstacles that they just chose not to give up. And honestly, even if you have a bad idea, but you just choose never to give up on it, you could probably turn it into something, truth be told. There's a lot of people out there that, the idea may not be great, but they just never gave up on it. And eventually they're able to drive it across the line. But remember, not giving up on something doesn't mean to just lull along without really putting your all into it. Because I think that happens to a lot of people. They come up with an idea or a concept, they get to a certain point, and then if things aren't working exactly the way they expect, they're like, oh, I'm not gonna put as much time toward this. I'm just gonna kind of have this on the side, but I'm also gonna work a full-time job. I'm gonna do this on, in my free time, but I also have this. And those are those people that you find that, they may have had an idea for 10 years, that they started on, and they still talk about the same idea from 10 years ago, and it hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't made progress. That's because they didn't give up on the idea, but they didn't really lean into it and say no, I'm giving everything toward this idea. So once you decided, I'm not gonna let someone talk me out of it, I'm not gonna give up on it, the next thing is really just pushing forward on that idea, and I like to call that focus. When I started Flipstik, we launched our Kickstarter campaign. We did $11,000 in sales. And a family member of mine was like, Akeem, this is so great. You did a great job. Now you got to come up with the next thing. And I looked at it. I'm like, the next thing? No, this is still the thing. I only made $11,000. I got to keep pushing this one thing. I have a lot of friends that have ideas and they start something, but then they start something else and something else and something else. And you can never really get momentum behind an idea if after 6 months or after a year, you switch to something else. You don't actually see it to fruition. That's why a lot of the most successful businesses are 20, 30, 40, 100, 200 years old, because they've been at it a long time. And I often tell people you may want to have a business where you sell shoes, but then you can't also, sell drinks, and then you can't also have a food business, and you can't also have a vlogging company. Like, you can't do all these things because you're not going to be able to put the time and attention toward one to get it really big before you make the next focus. A great analog to that I always like to talk about is Amazon, right? When Amazon first started, what did they sell? Books. That's it. They were an online bookstore. For years, all Amazon sold was books. They wanted to sell books online. They wanted to figure out how people read books. They wanted to figure out how people could find and discover books. And those were the fundamental building blocks that led to Amazon being the everything retailer, e-commerce giant as we know them today. But originally, they just sold books. And they focused on being the best bookseller online they could possibly be. And once they mastered that and they built this brand about being a bookseller, then they were able to venture out into devices, which were Kindle. And then they ventured out into other products and eventually to every product, to where they became a platform. But don't be afraid to have a very narrow focus on your idea or concept before you start branching out into a lot of other things. Those are some of the tips that I think were crucial to my success. A lot of people were like, hey, when are you coming out with the next version of Flipstik? Or why don't you do this product? Or why don't you do that product? And it wasn't that these weren't good ideas, but the timing wasn't right. It was like, well, everyone hasn't bought a Flipstik yet, so why am I trying to sell something else? When you look at a company like Apple Computer 1 and Computer 2, those were the only things they sold for years. They didn't have iPods and iPhones and iPads and all these other products and iTunes and all these other services until literally decades after they created the original computer, the home computer. That's what they made. That's what they did. Let's sell this until we master this, and then we can move on to other things. So don't be afraid to follow what works. All these big companies that have all these different services and stuff that you see now, all these different product lines, almost all of them started with one thing. So I encourage people to keep that focus. So in summary, remember, you want to start off with your idea. Don't let someone talk you out of it, because trust me, they will. You have to believe in yourself more than you believe in other people's opinions about what you can do. Number 2 is don't give up. Keep pushing forward, keep giving it 110% until you get to that point that you're looking for, the point that you're after. Don't ever give up on your product. And number 3, focus. Focus your intentions on that one thing that you want to be good at, that one thing you want to do, until you blow that up, and then you can venture out into all the other things that you want to do. I had a great entrepreneur friend of mine tell me that your success in one thing gives you the freedom to do many things. And that is so, so true. So I wish you guys all the success in the world to your business idea. Why don't you drop a comment below if you feel comfortable sharing your idea? Drop a comment below. I love to comment on stuff like that. Feel free to reach out to me for feedback, for advice, for anything that you can imagine. And if you enjoyed this video, consider liking or subscribing. And other than that, my name is Akeem Shannon. I will catch you all in the next video. Until next time, peace.